What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream, and today I have prepared something very exciting for you. I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it because today we're gonna build a iMessages clone, the messages application from iOS, and we're gonna do that using React Native and Stream Chat SDK. This is going to be a great tutorial if you want to build a messaging application, or if you want to integrate messaging features in the application that you are building. Maybe you're building a side project or a startup, or you have to do this at your job. Then check out this video till then, because in this video we're going to implement a full-fledged messaging application that is going to have all the features that you'd expect in an application like WhatsApp, iMessages, Telegram, and so on. By the way, a fun fact is that I just did this intro, I think it was 10 minutes, and then I realized that I'm not live. So I'm gonna do it again. Let's have a look at what exactly we're gonna build. We're gonna start with, of course, displaying a list of channels that you are part of, and then you can access them and start talking with people. On the channel page, we're not gonna just have simple basic messages. Here we're gonna have a lot of features that you might use in day-to-day messaging applications, like message reactions, the replies, threads, sending different types of media like links or maybe photos. Even photos is possible. To see who is currently active, who saw your messages, like everything, all of these features we're gonna have in our application by the end of this video. That's pretty exciting. And yeah, the next step is also very important. I'm going to show you how you can integrate Stream Chat with your custom backend, because if you're integrating this in an existing project, you must probably already have a database, you must probably have a custom backend where you store your users and other entities from your application. So by integrating with Stream Chat, we're going to be able to connect the users that you already have in your database with Stream Chat users, and this way everyone can connect with each other in the application and chat. This video is sponsored by Stream. Thank you very much, Stream, for sponsoring this video. And if you don't know already, Stream provides this ability to design and build any chat use case. We have used Stream in the past, and I always recommend to the startups that I'm advising, if they have to build chatting and messaging features in their application, I also direct them in the direction of Stream, because this is actually going to save you so much time compared to building everything yourself. I don't even believe that one person can build the same messaging experience that you get out of a box with Stream, just because of the amount of features that it provides. And also, yeah, like instead of spending like a couple of 3, 4, or 6 months building not the best messaging experience, but something that would work, you can instead spend a day or two or follow this tutorial, and in a couple of hours you're gonna have full-fledged messaging experience integrated in your application. Before we get started, I want to let you know that everything that you need in order to follow along with me and get your hands dirty and build it together, because this is actually the best way to learn something new, is to follow along and build it yourself. So I have prepared everything for you in order to make it easier for you. First of all, the asset bundle contains pre-made components, and also it contains a very minimal notJust backend that we're gonna use to integrate with Stream Chat. So that one you definitely need. So follow assets.notjust.dev/iMessages. Also, the step-by-step guide on our websites, you can find the link in the description below, will provide you actually all the steps and all the code snippets in order to follow along and make sure that you are on track. And that's going to also be the way we will keep this tutorial up to date. And if anything will change in the future, you're gonna see it on our on that page. So if you open it up, it's gonna go here. So you're gonna have all the step-by-step guide. And you will need a Stream account, and you can get a Stream account with 30 days free trial following the link in the description below. And also, if you're eligible, if your application is making, I think at this moment the requirement is if your application is making less than $10K dollars per month, in that case you can apply for a maker account and use Stream Chat SDK completely for free. So that's a very good way to get started, integrate it as long as your application is still growing. It's gonna save you a lot of time. But more about that we're gonna see in a moment. And I think we're ready to actually get started. So let's run the intro. All right, guys. Hi, everyone in the chat. Hello again, because I started talking with you after doing the previous intro, and then I realized, like, why we are not live yet. So now I hope everything is okay and everyone is ready to actually get started. And as usual, tell me where are you joining us from today? If you're ready, if you've got your coffee, and let's get started. I'm super excited about today's build. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it as well. Messaging is such an basic and important feature because nowadays most of application would need some kind of messaging features in them to provide to the users. But in a lot of cases, messaging is not at the core of your application, and you don't have the necessary resources to invest in building this messaging experience with a very good user experience. So that's why I think this tutorial is going to help a lot of you out there. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to use Expo for that. We're going to use Expo router, and like the next Expo just released the Expo SDK 49, and Expo router just released router v2. So we're gonna use these updated versions with the risk that something might not be fully working at the moment, but we're gonna go through it just in order for this tutorial to be updated longer. So I'm pretty sure if you're watching it later, Expo, SDK 49 and router v2 have been already there for a couple of times, so everything should be working fine. Anyway, let's go ahead and start. I'm going to open up a terminal. Let me zoom in. One second. Let's go to projects, YouTube. What there? iMessages, and here let's go ahead and initialize our Expo application using the SDK 49. So for that, let's go ahead and do npx create Expo application. Make sure to add latest in order for create Expo application to use the latest version, and let's give it a name. The name is going to be iMessages, and we're going to use a template. We're going to use the template blank. So if you're watching this video later, then you can easily go ahead and continue with template blank. But right at this moment, we have to add at SDK 49 to specify that we want to use the SDK 49. Now we're gonna wait a couple of minutes or probably seconds for the Expo to initialize the project. And while that is happening, I think it's a good time to go ahead and sign up for a Stream account. So let's go ahead and access get Stream. No, actually, we're gonna go to YouTube. And here is the URL for getting a free 30 days free trial for Stream account. So let's open it up. I already have signed up with a free account. So go ahead and do the same. It's a pretty straightforward process to create an account. And once you are here, most probably you're gonna already have a default application. If you don't, let's go ahead and create a new one. So our application is going to be called iMessages. And what we need is we need to provide where do we want the servers to be located. I'm going to choose something that is closer to me, for example, EU West. And for the environment, let's make sure that we say development. Go ahead and press create application, and could not submit already exists. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or let's do, I'm gonna do it like not just messages. That's gonna be my very unique name. Something went wrong. Image uploading config. Okay, everything is okay. To make sure that your application is in development, you can go to your applications. And from here, let's open this settings up, edit application, and here double check its development. All right, so this will give us our key and our secret key. Using the API key, we're gonna be able to connect from our client side, from React Native, and using the secret, we're gonna be able to connect from our backend, and we're gonna need it a bit later. But for now, let's have a look if let me move it probably here. And yes, we see that meanwhile, Expo has initialized our projects successfully. Our project is ready. So we can go ahead and open it with Visual Studio Code, iMessages. I have this code command that opens the project in Visual Studio Code. If you don't have it, you can simply open manually Visual Studio Code and navigate from there to open it up. Okay, this template is not using Expo router yet. So what we will have to do is let's go ahead and before even running our application, let's install Expo router. So you're gonna find the link to, let's do Expo router here. Introduction to Expo router. Here we have it. Let's go ahead to the installation guide and follow along for the with the installation guide. We're not gonna go with a quick start because that will suggest to start with the template tabs. I want to have a very minimal setup from the beginning to have full control of everything. So we see that Expo SDK 49 is compatible with Expo Router version 2. So let's go ahead and follow the prerequisites guide. We need to install the dependencies. So let's grab this command from here that will install Expo Router and all the peer dependencies of Expo Router. Let me go here. I'm going to open a terminal and let's run this command to install the dependencies. The next step is to set up our entry point. So in package.json, what we have to do is we have to update the main entry. So let's open package.json, and where we have main here, let's go ahead and replace it with explorer/entry. That's good. Now we need to modify project configuration to add the scheme, and the scheme will help us with deep linkings. So let's open app.json, and somewhere inside this Expo configuration, maybe I'm gonna do it somewhere here. What we have to do is we have to add the scheme. So I'm gonna choose not just messages. And what else? The web bundler. So let's do web. And the configuration for the web is going to use the bundler metro. It should be with this. Expo scheme web and bundler. And that should be inside our app.config.json or app.json. Oh no, there is already the web, that's why it's saying that it's a duplicate key. So I will just add bundler metro to that part. So bundler metro here, bundler. Okay, and that's everything that we have to do we also need to add the Expo router plugin in the babel.config. So babel config. We don't have yet the plugin, so let's simply copy the plugins here for the Expo router. That's good. Let's double check if that's it. Yes, that's all the steps that we have to do. And before we run our application, I want to also take one extra step. I want to use TypeScript in our application. So all I have to do is I have to define a file with the TSX extension. So I'm gonna go ahead and rename the app.js to app.tsx. And when we're gonna try to do npm start to start the development server, Expo is, it looks like you're trying to use web support but don't have the required dependencies. I don't actually need web support for now. So what do I have to? Yeah, I think for the web, I don't need the metro in this case. So as I was saying, just by simply changing the extension to TSX, Expo is going to be smart enough to see that and ask if we want to set up TypeScript and the types for React. So let's press yes when doing that, when running npm start. That will install a couple of additional libraries to enable TypeScript support, and will also generate this ts config. Yes, everything is good now. We see our application running here. We see the QR code. If you don't have emulator or simulators, go ahead and simply scan this QR code with your physical device by using the Expo Go application, which is available both on Play Store and on the App Store. In my case, I'm gonna open it on an iOS simulator, just for you to see it on the screen. Here we have it. I hope you can see it better. And let's wait until it initializes, and we are greeted with a welcome screen from Expo Router. The way Expo Router is working, Expo Router is a file-based navigation system, and all the screens in our application, they will live inside our app directory. At the moment, we don't have an app directory, so either we can create one, or we can simply press on this button that will automatically, boom, here we have application index.tx, which becomes our home screen of our application. So here we have hello world, and we already can delete and see it updating in our application. Is it too zoomed in? Maybe. All right, so that's the getting started with Expo Router, and at this moment we already don't need the app.tsx, because before Expo Router, app.tsx was the entry point of the application. Now it's no longer the entry point. Our entry point is the application folder here with all the files representing different screens in our application. Again, in a moment, we're gonna see how to create different screens, how to navigate from one to another, and so on. Yeah, I think we're good, and I think I can go ahead and do a git add and git commit initialize, so that afterwards I'm gonna share with you the the GitHub repository, so you're going to be able to navigate through the commits. Hello, Brian, Rodrigo, Chem, hi, how are you doing, guys? Cody Race, Ricardo, Ravi, how are you doing? Okay, so before we get into the stream configuration, while we are still talking about Expo Router, I was saying that before Expo Router, app.js was the entry point in our application. That's basically meaning that that file would always be executed, will always render, and will encapsulate the rest of our screens and the rest of our code in the application. For that reason, usually that was the place where we were configuring and setting up global context providers, like for example, authentication provider, navigation providers, and so on, because we needed it in the whole application. Now, with Expo Router, index.tx is not the root entry point. This is a separate page, and this is our home page. Whenever we navigate away from here, the index.tsx will not be included there. So for that reason, we have different kind of files that will encapsulate all the files in a specific group of screens. That file is called layout. And the layout, let's define it with underscore layout. The naming is important. Underscore layout tsx. And let's do export default function. Let's call it root layout. And here we can return something. What should we return? If we don't return anything, basically if we return null, nothing is going to be visible on the screen. If we want to keep the same functionality as we had before adding this layout file, what we can do is we can import the slot from Expo Router, and this slot will basically, by rendering it here like this, will simply render the child screen. So in this case, it simply renders the index because we are here. But now it gives us possibility to add, to wrap our slot, like our screen, with different context provider. For example, a theme provider or a global context provider for your data. Or in the next step, we're gonna use it to wrap our whole application with Stream Chat SDK. Okay, that's good. But if you want to use a different type of navigator, all you have to do is you have to import that navigator, for example, a stack navigator from Expo Router, and render it here like a stack, and right away you see the stack header at the top. I'm still not sure like if I want here a stack, so I'm gonna keep slot, and we're gonna move to the next step in our build. So let's see. Yeah, the next step is going to be to install and get started with Stream Chat SDK. Stream Chat is also providing the pre-made components, so like we don't have to build our components ourselves. However, if you look here, if you go to the chat documentation, you're going to see that the React Native has the client and the UI components. Client is the API. Basically, if you want to build all the components yourself, you simply will have to integrate with this client. And this is the API for everything related to messages. Basically, you're going to call a function to send a message, to join a chat, to get a list of chat, and so on. However, in our case, we're actually... Oh, what was that? Got a powerful thing here. Hopefully, I'm going to be alive till the end of this tutorial. What I wanted to say is that we're going to use the pre-made components because we are lazy. And we're not just lazy, but we are efficient. We want to save time. And the pre-made component does not mean that we cannot adjust them, because we can basically adjust everything about how they are rendered. We can customize them. Anyway, let's go ahead here, and in the installation guide, let's choose Expo, and let's start by installing StreamChat SDK. So I'm gonna take this command. Let's go here and do npm expo install StreamChat Expo. StreamChat Expo will provide us the Expo SDK, but the UI components will depend, also have some peer dependencies that they depend on, such as the Expo Media Library, React Native Gesture Handler, and so on. So make sure to choose Expo from here, Expo, and let's copy all the peer dependencies that we have to install as well. Okay, let's paste them in our terminal, enter. And there are, for all the additional packages that we installed here, there are some additional steps to set them up. For example, React Native Reanimated has some additional step in terms of configuring the babel.config and adding an extra plugin there. So let's copy this plugin, and in our Babel config, in our plugins, I'm gonna add it before the Expo router. If I'm not mistaken, Expo router config should be the last one. So I'm gonna save that. And gesture handler, we already had it, so no need to do anything. Yes. Okay, for now that's it. Let's go ahead and stop our server. And I'm gonna start it with npm start -- and -- clear to clear the cache. And let's go ahead and run it again on iOS. Hey, thank you very much, guys. Okay, now the next step is going to be to create a client. We see that, yeah, our application is still running, everything is okay, and I can close all of the files, and we can start configuring our client. When it comes to StreamChat, we have two options. We can either wrap our whole application with our StreamChat client provider, and in that case we're going to be able to interact with StreamChat from anywhere in our application. Or if we have separate screen for messages, it would be better idea to wrap only that screen with the chat functionalities. So I would imagine that in a lot of cases you guys would implement chatting as a extra feature in your application. It's not going to be the main feature. It's not going to be your home screen, what I'm trying to say. It's going to be somewhere as a separate screen. So for that reason, let's go ahead and create it as a separate group of screens. What I'm going to do for that is I'm going to actually create a new folder called chat. And in this chat, let's create a new file, index.tsx. Here, let's generate a simple default chat screen. Let's generate a simple component that will render on the screen chat screen. And let's go ahead and from our home page, which is the index inside our application, we want to navigate there. How do we navigate? We navigate using the link component from export router. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to actually transform this one to open chat. And instead of a text, I'm gonna switch to a link. Now the link needs an href to know where are we trying to redirect the user. So how do we get this href? Well, very simply, like we look at the file and folder structure where we want to navigate, and we start with a slash, very similar to how navigation works on web. Then we want to go to the chat. So slash chat, because that's the name of the folder. And then we have index. So if we don't put anything after it, it's gonna render the index. Later, if we're gonna have other screens, we're gonna see that we have to do slash chat slash maybe channel. So now if I'm gonna press on open chat, we see that it's not working. Open chat, yes, it's working. And we don't see anything on the screen just because here we can do just to center it on the screen. And chat screen is here in the middle of the screen. Okay, perfect. But for now, in order to make our life a bit easier, instead of rendering things here on the home screen, so if I'm gonna refresh, it's always gonna show me this home screen. So it's gonna be hard to always navigate to the chat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to comment it out because later we will need it. And I'm gonna simply return a redirect component, also imported from export router. And the redirect will redirect to slash chat. So now every time we go on the home screen, it's simply gonna redirect to the chat. So if I refresh, we land on the chat screen because of this redirect. So now let's focus on this chat screen. We have index.tsx here. And specifically for the chat, I will want this to be a stack navigator with a proper header to be able to navigate back and forth between screens. So what we have to do is we have to generate the layout file for this group of screens, for the screens inside the chat folder. So layout.tsx, and let's do export default function chat layout, and let's return a stack. So if I refresh, we see the header, index, and the chat screen. If you want to adjust some options, and for example, the title of this page, all you have to do is, instead of letting export router handle everything by default, let's tap into this stack by expanding it like this. And here, everything is React navigation. I'm pretty sure you already have experience with React navigation. So to target a screen, we're going to do stack.screen. We're going to target it using the name, and the name should be the name of a file, for example, index in our case. And then we can send all the options that are available for a stack screen from React navigation, just because export router behind the scenes is built on top of React navigation. And that allows us to use the knowledge that we had in the past about React navigation to adjust things here. For example, now I can do title messages. And we see that right away the title is changed on the top. All right, perfect. Another reason why I needed this layout, specifically chat layout, is Here is going to be the place where we will initialize and set up Stream Chat client. So the next step is going to be to create a client. Let's go ahead and do that. For the client, what we have to do is we have to import Stream Chat from Stream Chat. Now let's create the client here using streamchat.getInstance, and here we need to provide the API key. Where do we get it from? Maybe I can do it like this, API key. Let's define it here on top, API key, and let's take it from our dashboard. I'm gonna go ahead in our Stream Chat dashboard. So if you are here, select your application, not just messages. And here in the app access keys, we can copy the key. I'm gonna paste it here. Later in the video, I'm gonna experiment with Expo environment variables. So remind me later if I forget about that. And just like that, we had initialized and created our client. Next step. What do we do with this client? Having a client is one thing. We have to connect the current authenticated user to this client. We need to connect a user from our application to Stream Chat. Let's do that. Where we're gonna connect it? Well, in a use effect of the chat layout. So basically, as soon as we navigate to the to this /chat, and it's going to be any other page from inside this /chat, this use effect will be executed. And here, let's connect the user. Connect the user. So let's define this connect user function because it should be an async function. And let's call it right away. So connect user like this. Here, how do we connect the user? Well, we call await client dot connect user. And here we need to provide some information about the user. So what information about the user? Well, first of all, it should have an ID. So let's say that my ID is going to start with Vadim. It should have a name, and this is going to be used for the display name visible on the screen. So let's use Vadim. And it's optional, but you can also specify the image of a user to be displayed in the application. So for the image, I can maybe take it some predefined images from the documentation, maybe. For example, this one. Use any kind of image for now. And that's basically the most important parts in order to provide a good user experience. You can, of course, provide custom fields as well. That's also supported. But for now, we will keep it simple. The connect user, besides the user information, it also needs a user token. And this is the second parameter by calling it. So the user token, this is going to be the token. This token is very important because this is how we will connect our user from our custom database with a user from Stream Chat. If I provide simply token, we will see a warning, possible unhandled rejection. User token does not have a user ID matching it. Yes, because in production, we never use hard-coded tokens here. This token will be generated by our custom backend, and it will include inside it the user ID in order to tell Stream Chat that, hey, this user that is trying to connect is really the one that it's mentioned here. For now, for development, what we can do is StreamChat provides these very nice development tokens. So to use development tokens, let's first of all implement them, and after that we're gonna see what we have to do extra. So instead of hard coding the token here, let's generate a development token, and we can do that using client.dev token. And here you need to provide the user ID. So we need to provide the same ID of a user that we provided here, like this. If I do save, if I restart, we will still see a possible and handle exception with a status code 401, connection failed, token signature is invalid. Well, that's okay, because this is for a security reason. Like, having development token should only be used in development. In production, I'm gonna show you by the end of this video what you have to do. But for now, for development, let's simply go ahead in our Stream dashboard. The first step is you have to make sure that your application is in development. And after that, we have to open this, and we have to, inside the chat messaging overview, let's scroll down until authentication. And here you can disable auth checks. So let's enable this. Let's submit. Everything is good. We can go back to our application, and we can do restart application to see if we still get the promised rejection. Everything is fine. That means that our user has been connected successfully to the StreamChat SDK. But let's double check if that's actually the case. To do that, under the chat messaging here, we can go to the to the Explorer. And here there are two things, channels and users. Let's open up users, and we see the first one is the admin. So you see role admin. The second one is our user that we just created, with user, with this image, and with the name Vadim. Perfect. That means that we are successfully creating users on StreamChat. Now that the user is connected to StreamChat, what it can do is it can join and create channels. Where is my keynote? So the user is connected. The next thing is to connect to a channel, to create a new channel where we will be able to communicate. Come on. Oh, my keyboard disconnected. That's why it's not working. Okay, now it's fine. So after connecting the user, actually, yeah, before I forget and before we move on to the next step with creating channels, whenever we connect the user, we should also make sure to disconnect it when we leave these screens. So to do that, all we have to do, like the use effect, the function that we specify here will be executed when the component mounts. And when the component unmounts, it will call the function that we return from here. So let's return a function. And inside this function, what we have to do is we have to call client.disconnect user, and just like that. Because otherwise we will see warnings like this: consecutive calls to connect user is detected. This is not a big issue, but ideally you should only call this function once in the application. And yeah, like whenever we leave these screens, we will call this client.disconnect user. The problem is that with hot refresh, like if I do some changes here, sometimes this client disconnect will actually disconnect and will mess up some of our stuff. So in development, this sometimes messes up with hot reload. At the moment I don't see it, but maybe later we're gonna see it and we're gonna have to comment it out. But in production, this one should definitely be here. So, as I said, what I want to do next is I want to create a new channel. So inside this connect user, after we connected the user, let's go ahead and create a new channel. Channel equal client dot channel, and here the channel type. Stream provides a couple of types of channels, and these channel types is simply a group of configuration of a channel, like who is allowed to join, how should the rate limit or what feature should that provide. And if you look at the in the documentation, there is the channel types, and there are I think 5 in total channel types. Commerce, and this is good for e-commerce application. Gaming, live stream. Live stream will allow, like, basically building something that you see here on YouTube with a live chat. So I think we can start with a live stream to have a very public channel. So I'm gonna start with a live stream. Then we're gonna give the channel ID, and this is going to be, I don't know, public. And then the configuration about the channel. For example, what is going to be the name? Public channel. Let's do simply public. Let's save. And this will not create the channel. This will not create the channel on the backend. It will only create it here locally. What we have to do to create it on the backend, we need to call channel.create. And if I refresh, nothing happens. But if I'm gonna go to our Stream Chat dashboard in the Explorer, if I'm gonna look at the channels, I see this live stream public with ID public and created by Vadim. Perfect. I'm not sure if we're gonna need this later on. I just wanted to show you how we can create channels, and it's gonna allow us to see something on the next screens. So yeah, let's leave it for now. Maybe later we can delete it. Or if we want all the users to join the live stream chat, maybe that's a good idea to leave it here, in fact. Nice. All right. Now that we have created, at this moment we don't see anything on the screen, like we haven't touched anything related to the UI. Everything that we have done was basically connecting the user, creating a channel, and getting everything ready. Now is where I really, now is where, like, your mind will be blown away. Because what I like about Stream Chat is how easy it is to build these complex UI components. So let's start and let's see how much time we will need from this moment until we have an actual working application with chatting. So I'm gonna start with the first component. The first UI component that we need to do is the overlay provider. This overlay provider, we will inside the chat layout, we're gonna import it from overlay provider from Stream Chat Expo, and we're gonna wrap our whole stack with it. So it's going to be the component that basically will help Stream Chat render on the screen things that overlay. Let's say message reactions, or whenever we open an image on full screen, in that case, it's going to use this overlay provider to display it on top of everything else that is in the application. That's good. That's the first one. The next one is the chat, or is it chat? Yes, it is chat. And the chat provider is going to be that, is going to enable our screens here to access the client that we initialized here. So for that reason, chat has a required property called client, and we're going to expose the client to the rest of the screens. This is a simple React context, and it provides this client to the rest of the application. Okay, and for global things, that's everything that we need. Because the next thing is a chat list. The chat list is a flat list that Stream Chat will, and behind the scenes with that channel list, Stream Chat will query and render all the channels that we are part of. So we're not going to do it here because the channel list is specific to this messages screen. So let's go into app chat index.tsx. And here, let's go ahead and import channel list from Stream Chat Expo and simply render it on the screen here instead of this view. Channel list like this. If you do that, that's it. We already see the public chat screen, the public channel that we created in the previous step. Here we have our public screen. It doesn't have, it displays the name, it displays the last message. At this moment, it doesn't have any messages. It will also display the image if you set an image for that, for that chat room. Maybe we should do that. So I'm gonna use the same maybe image, or can I randomly find some kind of image? Or I can use this one. Let's do image. And did it update the chat room with that image? I'm not sure if it actually updated it. Created by. Maybe we can look into that a bit later because I don't see it actually changing it. Yeah, I'm gonna comment it out. All right, so that's our channel list. The next step is going to be whenever we press on this channel list, we want to go to that channel and to see the messages. I'm actually gonna start in the same screen to render the next parts, and later on we're gonna extract it in separate screens. But it's gonna be easier because all we have to do is let's go ahead and define a state variable for the channel that we selected, set channel, use state, and here let's do if we're using TypeScript, let's import channel as channel type from Stream Chat. And the type of this state is going to be channel type. Let's make sure to import the use state from React. And how we're gonna set it in state when we press on it, the channel list exposes a method on select, and this one select will give us the channel that was clicked, and we can set it in state, set channel. Now if I press, we're gonna set it in state, and maybe I can console log to show you that. Console log channel, let's open this up. Initially, it should be undefined because we haven't selected any channels. Yes, it's undefined. And when we press on this, it's a lot of data about that channel. But what we can do is we can do a if statement here. So if channel is actually defined, we're gonna return something else. We want to return the channel. So how do we do that? Let's import the component called channel from Stream Chat Expo, and we're gonna render it here. It needs the channel that we want to render with all the data about that specific channel. So we're gonna send it here. Now if I'm gonna press on the public, we see that everything disappears because channel is a component that simply wraps and provides data to the rest of the components that we're gonna use in a moment. And this is also the component that will allow us to do all the customization that we need. In order to see something on the screen, we're gonna use two more components. Come on, two more components inside our channel. The components that I'm talking about is the message list that will render all the messages in that channel and the message input. All of them are imported from Stream Chat Expo. And just like that, look here. If I press on the public, we go here, we don't see any messages. But at the bottom, we already see the send message box. So if I do hello world and press send, right away, we see it here. How are you? Boom, the message is here. So now I cannot go back because it's the same screen, like because the way we implemented it. But if I'm gonna basically refresh the application, come on. Oh, come on. It's I can press R here. If I refresh the application, you see that the last message here is also updated. I'm pretty sure like it's very, very small. Maybe I can zoom it in a bit. Come on. Maybe I can do it like this so you can see it better. So you see that the last message is actually how are you, because that was the last message that we sent here. And what we can do here is like we can do reactions. I'm not sure if you can react to your own post. And we are only 7 minutes away and we have all the things that we need here. Oh, but you don't see it. I still need to do it like this. So we see who reacted to this message. We can change the reaction, or we can give different reactions. We can reply. You can pin this to the conversation, and that will add it to the pinned messages. You can reply. You can send a Giphy, for example. Hey, let's say coding. If I do search, it's gonna show me some Giphy and I can shuffle. Oh, that one was a good one. And we can send. We can also do photos. We can select photos, can allow, and we can send it here. Let's wait. Send. We see that it is pinned. Like all of these features, we have them out of the box. Isn't this impressive? Like how easy was it? Yes, we spent probably 30 minutes to set everything up, but after that was set up, we needed just 10 minutes to render everything that we see here. And all we had to do is we had to render the component overlay provider that is helping us, for example, when we want to do message reactions. Like this is why we need the overlay provider. Then we provide the chat client to the rest of the screens, and we are displaying the channel list and the channel with a message list and message input. Like everything is done for us. The only thing that we have to do is we just have to integrate, and that's it. And the thing is that everything that you see here is also customizable, and a lot of things are customizable through this channel property. If we will have some time at the end, maybe we will get into some customization, but you can check out the detailed documentation of all of these components that we just created. For example, overlay provider, I give you here the URL. For the chat, here is the URL, chat list, maybe channel. So open up the URL from the presentation, which, by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but this is also inside the dummy data, downloadable below. So here is the basic usage, but you can provide like UI customization. You can provide your own custom things for the message replies, for the footer, for reaction list. Like anything that you want to adjust, like it's possible to do here. Just look at the size of this documentation, just because a lot of things are actually customizable. Anyway, as I said, like this kind of, like what we have at the moment is some kind of pseudo navigation where we navigate from the channel list to the channel itself by using a state variable. Well, that's not actually how navigation works, because we usually want separate pages for different channels. For example, if you would want to share a link, like a deep link to this chat room, in this situation we cannot do it, because the only deep link we can share is to the whole chat, which will display this channel list. So let's go ahead and move our channel to a separate screen. How we're gonna do that? Let's go ahead and in the chat, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm gonna explain in a moment why we need a folder and not a file. And the folder name is going to be called channel. The thing is that the URL to our channel is going to be a dynamic URL. And what do I mean by that? What are dynamic URLs? I can show you using maybe Twitter. So if you go to Twitter and you go to someone's profile, you see that the username of that person is part of a URL. It's not something behind the scenes. It's not under the question marks or so on. It's actually part of a URL. And this is a better experience because it's much easier to share this kind of URLs where identifiers of things are part of the URL. So to create a dynamic link in Export Router, all we have to do is let's create a new file for the channel screen, and the dynamic part of a link, we will put it between square brackets. And the name of a variable that we're gonna receive, we type it here. For example, ID. And let's do .tsx. Let's define here React Native functional export. For the name of a component, I'm gonna do channel screen. Let's do channel screen here. Export channel screen. And now what we have to do is in the previous screen, in our chat index, the one that is rendering our channel list, when we press on the on select, we want to navigate to slash, we want to navigate to slash chat, because that's the first folder, then slash channel, that's the second folder, channel, then slash the ID of a chat room. So for example, if we look here, if this chat room is called public, I'm gonna do /public. And this way we will navigate specifically to the channel with ID public. How do we do that? Well, we need, we're not gonna need these things anymore. I'm gonna comment them out. What we will need is the router equal use router from expo router. Use router from expo router. And when we press on this channel, instead of setting it in state, we're gonna do router dot push. We're gonna push a new route, and the href is going to be this one. So public chat / channel / public. But we want this last part to be dynamic. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. So let's, instead of normal codes, let's put the backticks, because the public will become a dynamic variable, but we can replace it like this. So what's going to be the dynamic variable here is going to come from the channel that we clicked on, dot ID. Now let's refresh our application. If I press on the public, we are navigated to the channel /ID. That's good. That's exactly what we wanted. When we press on it, to navigate to a new screen and to be able to go back. But the next step is, how do we get the channel? How do we get the ID on this channel screen? Well, this ID dynamic property, we can get it through the use local search params. And if I do console log search, you're gonna see, let's say if I go back and navigate here, you're gonna see that this contains an object with all the parameters from all the dynamic parameters from our URL. So because our file has this square brackets and ID, this ID is going to be parsed from the URL, and yeah, ID is coming from here, and public is coming from this dynamic property where we send it here. Does it make sense? I hope it does. And what we can do with that ID, I'm actually right away going to destructure it here, ID. And yes, this is our console log ID, public. Okay. So knowing the ID, we can go ahead and query the channel with this ID. And here, you might expect, like, in some situations, you might expect to send the whole channel through the navigation when you press on it to send it to the next page. But whenever we navigate, the rule of thumb and the recommendation is to send as least information as possible. And where it is possible, just send some identifiers like an ID or a username. And then on that screen, having the identifier, go ahead and query the data. Because this way, the screen will be independent. And what you can do later is you can open that screen with deep link, specifying only the ID of a channel without having to go through the previous process again. So by sending only identifiers and doing all the heavy load of querying for more details that the screen is needs, by doing that, we make sure that the screen is more independent of the rest of the application. Okay? So that's why we are only sending the ID. And here what we have to do is to query the channel. From the previous screen, I'm going to copy this state, because we actually need the state. The channel type, we imported it from stream chat, so let's bring that here as well. And the use state from React. Okay, where are we going to query the channel? We're gonna do that in a use effect when this component mounts. Actually, not only when the component mounts, but actually when the ID changes. So let's put the ID in the parameters here to fetch the channel, fetch channel every time the ID changes. This is going to be an async function. And let's call it right away, fetch channel. To fetch the channel, we need the stream chat client. To get the client, remember that in our layout, we provided it here using this context provider. Now, all we have to do in our file is to get access to that. And we're gonna do that by calling use chat context, and from there we can take the client. Now, having the client in this fetch channel, what we can do is let's call client.channel.query, or let's go to the documentation to see exactly what we have to do. In the documentation, I'm gonna go to React Native directly to the client, because here we're interacting directly with the client. And for the channels, we can go to the querying of a channel. So yeah, well, what we have to do is chat client.query channels, and we can provide a filter. So client.query channels, and here we need to provide a filter. The filter, the filter structure is very similar to MongoDB filters. And for example, if we want to filter based on the ID, we're gonna do ID, and we're gonna provide an object with the operation at equal, $equal to the ID that we received in the link. It tells us that this ID can either be string or an array of strings. So what I can do probably is const underscore ID equal if ID dot length. Let's do question. If I did dot length, then I will take it from that array at position 0. Otherwise, I'm going to simply take the ID. So this should be a question mark, like this. Because this ID can either be a string, and when it's a string, we're going to just put it there. And when it is an array of strings, we're going to take the first one. So here we need the underscore ID. Okay, query channels, but let's go ahead and get these channels back with await channels, and let's go ahead and do console log. This one should be string. What to do if if it's string, then take ID, otherwise ID.0, maybe that's gonna work better. Yes, it's gonna work actually better. So let's console log the channels to see what do we get here. So if I press on the public, yes, it actually is an array with the channel that we were looking for. So what we can do is we can set channel in state using channels at position 0. Okay, and the last step is to actually go back to how we implemented it previously. and copy the return statement from here. Let's go to the ID and let's replace it here. Basically, what we have to do is to render the channel that we have to import from Stream Chat Expo, the message list and the message input. But be sure, be careful, because the channel can also be null, because initially that's going to be null. We will not have it. So will it work? No, it cannot read property ID. So we're going to do if channel is still null. In that case, let's simply return an activity indicator to show that we are still loading the channel. Now if I'm going to press public, it's loading and we have our messages back here. So this process took a little bit of time to send, but this is the right way of having two separate screens. And in the previous one, I can delete everything that we commented. The previous one is a pretty simple screen where we only display the channel list, all the channels that we are part of. And when we press, we actually navigate to a new screen. We can go back, we can go from a channel to a channel, and so on. So yeah, and we accomplish this by using query channels. If you have experience with Stream Chat, let me know if there is a better approach to get a channel by ID, because everything that I found is these query channels. And I think it would be much easier if there would be a client.get channel where we just simply pass an ID and we get the channel by ID. I'm gonna talk with the team from Stream Chat to see if we can implement that. That would be really cool. Okay. Message input. So guys, we have a quite functional messaging experience here that if I would share the QR code with you, you'd be able to join and we would be able to communicate. The only thing is that still at this moment, we are connecting with, if we look in the layout, we're connecting with a user that we hard code here. And what we will want to do is to allow some kind of authentication and then sending the authenticated user data in order for different users to be able to start using it and communicating with each other. So that's what we're gonna do in the next step. We're gonna implement like the backend of it to be able to let multiple users connect and have a conversation between each other. Because to be honest, talking with yourself like is not very fun. And here is the full screen images. Perfect. So let's sum up everything that we did so far. So in order to make our Stream Chat work, all we have to do is we have to first initialize the client. Then then we have to connect a user to Stream Chat to get stream, and we're gonna do that using the generated token from the documentation, and we're gonna see that in a moment. For now, we used the development tokens to connect to the backend of Stream Chat. After we connect the user, we wrap the whole application in the overlay provider to allow Stream Chat to display things on top of our applications, like full screen images. And the next step was to wrap our whole application, or only the screens that depend on the chatting functionalities inside the chat component. We use the channel list to render a list of channels on the screen. For now, we have only one channel, but in a moment, we're gonna be able to initialize one-to-one conversations. And also we're gonna see how to do like group conversations, maybe invite conversation and so on. And lastly, using the channel component and the two other components like message list and message input, we render the user interface, the UI of the actual messaging page, where we can send messages, we can send attachments, files, we can reply, we can even paste here URLs. So if I'm going to maybe share, I don't know, this tweet, will it actually parse it? I'm not sure. Let's see. Tweet and what if we do notJust.Dev? I'm pretty sure like it's possible to do that to it's possible to show URL previews, but probably we have to take like one more step to do that. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and do git add git commit -m. Perfect. Now let's have a 2 minutes break. Let's see what your guys saying in the live chat. And then we're going to continue because that's not it. Like we still have a lot of things to cover. We want to connect it with our custom backend. We're going to allow everyone here in the live chat maybe to join our conversation there. So stay tuned. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to do that. We're going to implement private chat too. Yes, we're going to implement private messaging as well. Rayquaza is asking, great stuff, but who can afford to pay $500 a month if chat applications are usually free? That's a very good question. And I saw some other people mentioning about the pricing. The way I look at the pricing here is you don't just look, take it out of a context and look like 500 a month, that's a lot. A better approach to look at this price is to compare it with the resources required to build everything that we see here, to build it yourself. And be realistic and ask yourself how many hours, let's say even a senior developer, would need to implement all of these features that you see here. And I basically showed you here, like, I don't know, 30% of the features, because with some extra adjustments, you can do way more. So let's say that one senior developer would need, let's say, even half a year to implement something similar. I am pretty sure it will not be possible to do everything that you see here. Especially if we're talking about the backend and making it scalable and covering all the edge cases. Like that's a couple of years. And the salary of a full stack developer, let's say it's at $100,000 a year. So for half a year, that's $50,000. So when you compare $50K to $500, what would you rather do? Invest in building it yourself, or use something that is pre-made, take the benefit of a maker account while you can, because at this moment, if your application doesn't have a lot of users yet, in that situation, you can take the maker account, use it for free. And whenever you get to a point where you are no longer eligible for the maker account, in that case, that would be very good problems for you to have, because that means that you are generating a lot of money. That means that you have a lot of users. So in that situation, you will be able to afford it. Because the maker account is for everyone, for all the applications that, let's check stream chat maker account. So maker account details. So everything is free if you have less than 10K in monthly revenue. So if you have more than 10K in monthly revenue, the price of Stream Chat will be 5%, 5% of your monthly revenue. I think that's a very good deal. So that's how I see it, and that's also what I tell the startups that I'm advising. Like, hey, don't waste time on doing everything yourself. Use Stream Chat and have a delight your user with a very good user experience and save yourself a lot of headache. Let's see our questions. Ravi, let me know those questions after the live stream somewhere, because it's a bit not related to the topic of today's video. Oh, let me scroll through some of the questions. Unable to download assets. What's going on with our assets? So if you go to assets, iMessage. Yes, there is something wrong there. Give me just 1 second. iMessages. How did I call it? Maybe I made them an Let me double check the assets for you guys, because in the next step you actually need the assets. You need the backend files. Guys, if you enjoyed this so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. You have a couple of seconds until I enable the assets. Newest iMessages. Settings, domain name, iMessages. Should work. Why it's not? Are URLs case sensitive? Yes, they are. And let me check what I put here. iMessages, asset bundle. I think it should work. Let me try it real quick with my email. Downloading. Yes, everything should be working. Here we have it. Yes, after you go to the iMessages, fill in the form, you're gonna receive an email with the download asset bundle. And here is the zip that I just downloaded. And here is our asset bundle with the things that we will need in the next step. So let me go here. And here is where, yes, we Okay, so let's get started with our backend integration. Because in most of the cases, you're not just gonna simply build an application that has these components that we just built for now. Most probably what you are doing is integrating StreamChat SDK into an existing application or into something that you are currently building. And in that case, you have your own backend, you are storing the users in your own database. And what we will want to do is we want to connect the users in our backend with the users from StreamChat. So let's go ahead and first of all cover the basic authentication. And for the basic authentication, we are still talking about the React Native application. Because at the moment when we don't have any kind of sign-in flow or sign-in screens in this project. So what we want to do is we want to protect our routes with authenticated and allow only authenticated users to see these routes. Because if you have a chatting application in your if you have chatting features in your application to let users interact with others, you'll need to make sure that they are first authenticated. So let's go ahead. This is also going to be a very short tutorial about authentication in Expo Router. So what we have to do is we have to add the sign-in screen. So let's see what of the things in the asset bundle I provided you, because I prepared a couple of React Native components for us to save a bit of time. So from the asset bundle, let's open React Native code. And here there is this authentication folder. Let's open it up and we see the sign-in file. What I'm gonna do is actually, I'm gonna bring it here and I'm going to drag and drop this authentication folder inside our application here, just like that. I don't need this one anymore. I'm gonna move it out of the way. Here we have our authentication, the sign in, and let's see what it needs. Well, it depends on the context provider. If we look at the documentation of Expo, let's do, where is it? Expo router docs. Here, there is a documentation that explains how to implement authentication. I'm gonna get there. So introduction, guides, authentication, and let's go there. Yes, that's the authentication in Expo Router. Go ahead and read this document that explains how this authentication works. But I will also explain you a couple of important things from here. Everything I do is I took this authentication context provider, I adjusted it a little bit for our use case, but the logic is still the same. And this authentication context provider is going to help us protect routes and also handle all the logic about authentication. So to create that authentication context provider, we're not going to put it inside our app directory because remember, app directory is only for screens. If we're talking about components or context, we need them somewhere else. And somewhere else, I usually put them in source. And let's create a new folder here, context. From From the asset bundle, I have provided the auth context as well. So let's maybe drag and drop it in our context here, like this. So we have source, context, auth context. And now everything should be working fine. Yes. Let's have a look a little bit on this context. The protected routes logic, everything is happening inside this use protected route custom hook that we are defining here. And how does it work? Well, it takes two things. It takes the segments, and segments are like in a URL, like if this would be the URL, the segments will be an array with first is expo, then second is router, then is issue. So as you can see, the slash divides all the segments in a URL. And using that, we can understand if the user is on the authentication screens, because this segment, the segment of those URLs will always start with this authentication of string. Otherwise, we know that we are not on the login or sign in or sign up screen. So using segments and also receiving the authenticated user, in this use effect here, we are checking if we are in authenticated group. It's simply checking if the first segment is authentication. And if we are not signed in and we are not in the authenticated group, that means that we are trying to access a screen that we should not have access to, because we are not authenticated and the screen is not one of a sign in or sign up screen. So in that case, we simply redirect using router replace to the sign in screen. Otherwise, we check like, however, if a user is authenticated and we are trying to still access the sign in screen, we don't want to do that because we are already authenticated and we just want to go to the home screen. So that's how we dynamically navigate from and redirect the user in the place where he's supposed to be based on the authentication status. This use protected route is used later in the authentication provider, and we are using the user which is in our context, is in our state. So if there is a user, like whenever the user will authenticate, we're gonna call this sign-in function, and the state will update, we'll send it here, and the logic above will automatically replace it and go home. The thing is that we still, like, as you can see, it's not working yet because we still need to wrap our whole application using this auth provider. So let's go ahead, and where we're going to do that, it's going to be in our root layout. So in this root layout, let's import auth provider, and let's wrap our slot with auth provider like this. Now, as you can see, if I refresh, it will try to go to the index. The index will try to redirect to the chat, but because we are wrapped in the auth provider, the provider will go ahead and replace it with /sign-in. That's why now we see the sign in. And if I press sign in, we're automatically redirected because in the authentication sign in screen, the only thing that we do is we take the function from the authentication provider that we expose here with sign in. And this function at the moment simply generates and sets a dummy user here in state. In a moment, we're gonna integrate with the actual backend. We're gonna send and save this to the database to actually sign in the user, not with dummy data. But as we can see, right now everything is working. And if I'm gonna refresh, I'm gonna land on the sign in screen and go through this process again. So that's how we implement these protected routes using Expo router. All right, so the next step is going to be our backend. Let's go ahead and set up the backend. And I have prepared for you a very minimal Node.js backend just to showcase you how everything is going to be connected together. But in your case, your backend can be anything. Like it can be a Node.js backend, it can be an AWS Amplify backend, or a Firebase, or anything like even Supabase, or any kind of backend where you can write a little bit of code and install a package. You can integrate this with StreamChat. In this situation, to keep it simple, I'm gonna use a simple Node.js backend, and I believe that a lot of you are still using Node.js. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna open a new window of Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna move it to the other side here. And I'm going to open the iMessage backend from the asset bundle. Here, open folder. Give me just 1 second to find it. Come on, so many things. iMessage asset bundle. So I'm gonna open the folder of the backend inside a separate Visual Studio window. And that's it. I don't need anything else. Yes, I trust. Here, as you can see, everything that we have is an index file that has the login and the /users. We're gonna see why we need them in a moment. But what we have to do first, let's open a terminal and let's do npm install. We installed it, and this backend is using Prisma, which sets up a local database using SQLite. All we have to do is to, the Prisma model just contains one database table for our users, where we specify user, ID, username, name, and image. Now, all we have to do is to deploy, basically create this database, and we're gonna do that using npx prisma migrate. Let's do dev and / name. Let's give it a name. For example, init. I'm gonna zoom in a bit so you can see this command. Press enter. And your database is now in sync with your schema, and it created this dev.db. We cannot open it here, but what we can do is we can open the Prisma Studio. So we can do npx Prisma Studio, and this will open a new window here where we can see everything in our database. And we see that at the moment we only have one table. At the moment, there are no users, but in a moment, we're going to have some. Because in this terminal, we are running the Prisma Studio, let's leave it running and let's open a new terminal. And in the new terminal, let's go ahead and run our server using npm start. This should execute the index.tsx file, and our server is ready at localhost 3000. If I'm going to open it up, we see that we cannot get the /, but if I'm going to do /users, it should be an empty array. We don't yet have any users. Let me quickly show you what do we have here. So first of all, this /users is a GET request, and all it does, it reads the user from the database and returns all of them. We're going to need this in order to render a list of users in the application with whom we might want to start a conversation with, right? Besides slash users, we need a way to create users. Usually, in applications, you would have a sign up endpoint and a login endpoint. And usually they would be a little bit more protected using like some password or some other ways of authentication. You're going to generate some kind of JWT token for the authentication. But in this example, I kept it very simple. All the slash login does is it takes the username that we receive, and that's why we only have one field here, again, to keep it simple for the username. And what it does, it creates that user in the database if it doesn't exist, or it simply updates it if it's already there. And we get back the user and we return it back to the screen. If you have some kind of HTTP client, for example, I have this Thunder client, this is not necessary because in the next step, we're going to integrate it with our React Native application. So you can just look at this process that I'm doing. I just wanted to show you how we can create users. For example, I'm going to copy the local host, and using the Thunder client in a new request, I'm going to send a new request to localhost.login using post method. And for the body, I'm going to do, we need to send the username. So username, user1, send, and we get back the data about the user, ID 1, username user1, the same name, and no image at the moment. And if you look in the Prisma Studio, you'll see this username here. And I can actually do another one, for example, user2, send. Yes, it's there. And if we will query the localhost 3000/user using the GET request, we're going to receive all of them here. So now we have a bit of understanding of how our API is working. And let's move to our React Native side and implement these queries to the backend. To connect our React Native application with our custom backend that we just created. The logic of sending this request, let's put it in our authentication context. And if we scroll down, we will see this sign-in method. This sign-in method is exported from the context and is used whenever we press on this button. So I can also show you to better have a visualization of how everything is connected. Here we have sign-in. What's the problem with why do I have slash off? Yes, everything is okay. So as you can see, when we press on the button, we call the sign-in using the username that we type here, and this sign-in is taken from the user authentication. So in the end, what we're doing is calling this function. Okay. So what do we have to do in this sign-in? We have to do the same thing as we did here with posting to the /login on the local host. So let's take the URL of our API, and maybe we can put it in somewhere like in a config file. Let's do config.ts, and let's export const API URL equal localhost for now. Maybe later you're going to deploy it and it's going to be different. In the auth context, we're going to need that. Shall we create a separate service? Because auth context is already so much code here. Yeah, let's create a folder for services. And let's create an authentication service that is going to be responsible for sending the API requests. So auth service.ts. So what we are interested in is in login that will receive a username of type string, and here we need to call the API to actually log in, and we will export this login from here. Maybe not even auth service, but maybe user service, and we're gonna put other API calls here as well. Export const login from the user service. Okay, so now that we have it here, we can do console log username, and we can connect it with our context. For that, let's go ahead and import login from services user service, and whenever we call this sign-in function, let's go ahead and do set user await login username and set user new username. And yeah, okay. This should return a promise of type user. Yes, okay. So now if I press on this sign in, we in the console log, we should see this username here. So sign in, nothing because we didn't write anything. Sign in, yes. Okay. So this is where we will send the post API request to the server to log in our user. To do that, we're gonna use fetch API, and let's also import the API URL from our config. So let's go ahead and this is going to be an async function, and const response equal to await. Let's use simply fetch, which is by default available in React Native. Fetch. Let's see what do we need. First is the API URL, but the API URL is simply the base URL. We need to put a /login afterwards to match exactly what we did here. Localhost 3000/login. Then for the options, the method is going to be post. The content type, or how is it called? Or no, the headers. Let's specify headers. Oh, I need to look into the documentation. Fetch post. Fetch URL, method post, headers, content type, application JSON. That's what I was looking for. Do we need anything else? I don't think so. Oh, and the body. Yes. The body is very important because we need to send the username as the body. So body is going to be, should be a stringified JSON. So a JSON.stringify. And here let's do username. So let's try to do console log response. And if I'm gonna do here Vadim and do sign in, there was a problem. Log message to your development environment. Yeah, because I think the response is a quite large blob. So we can check if response.status is different than 200. Then let's simply alert.alert error signing. So if I do it like now, error while signing in, because there is no actual username. But otherwise, what we can do is user equal to response.json, and this is a asynchronous function, so we need to await in order for the response to be transformed from a blob to a normal JSON. And here we can do console log user. So if I press sign in, it's an error, but if I provide a valid name, sign in, we see the user. Perfect. In the when the error happens, what you can actually do is maybe console log response dot I will add here just a way to still get the body and try to show the body.error. Because in our backend, I'm sending this body error and username is missing. Perfect. Now we saw that the actual username was returned. So all we have to do is to return this user from here instead of return user or null, and here we're gonna return null if there was an error, otherwise we're gonna return the user. So if I do Vadim here, sign in, voila, we are in our application. And if we look inside our Prisma Studio, we see that a new user with username Vadim was created. And the cool thing is that, yeah, like if I do something else, like Alex, sign in, look back, the Alex user was created. And if you provide the same username twice, it's not gonna create a new one because in our backend we specified that. But that's not the most important part here. Like so far, what we did is we basically created our backend that has some basic authentication functionalities. We connected our React Native application with a backend to enable these authentication methods. And now we are ready to actually connect our users from the backend, our users that we have in our database here, with the users from Stream Chat. And that will allow us more people to join the application. To do that, if we look at the documentation of, let's see what we have from React Native, use the data, yes. If we look at the documentation of tokens and authentication from Stream Chat, Zadi, yes, I'm gonna provide the source code as soon as I finish the build. So we can read here more, but what we want is these token providers. Token providers are basically our custom backend, being it notJust, being it a Lambda function or a Firebase function. It's a place where from our backend we can safely generate some tokens that can identify users. So these token providers should be able to receive information where provide a user ID corresponding to that user to a client's token creation method. Yes. Because user token can only be safely generated on the server. We cannot rely on clients. We should never expose our secret in our clients, being it a mobile application or a web application. If it's inside the client, it can be decoded and people can get access to the secret of your application. So that's why using this secret on the backend side, what we're going to do is we are going to generate some tokens that will identify users, and Stream Chat will know our secret and they will be able to decode and get the user ID and validate that indeed the user that is trying to connect is the one that is saying. So to generate token on our backend, what we have to do is we have to check this method. And here, all we have to do is to call create token based on the user ID. For that, we need the Stream Chat inside our backend. So let's go ahead in our backend. And this, again, at the moment, wait a second. I want to do git add. So here is our backend. Now I'm going to show you how we can do this on our backend in Node.js environment. However, if you are using, for example, AWS Amplify, you would want to do this inside a Lambda function. And all you have to do is to connect the Lambda function with a GraphQL query or mutation, or create even a Lambda trigger whenever the user signs up. You right away go ahead and generate a token for him. In other places, yeah, it's also possible. All we need to do is we need to install in our backend environment Stream Chat. Come on. In our environment variables, let's go ahead and add two environment variables for the API key and for the secret. And I'm going to take them from the dashboard. You can go here, up, access key. Let's take the key. And let's take the secret as well. Nice. And let's go ahead and source index. And here is going to be the place where we will initialize the client and generate the token. So starting with importing Stream, how is it called? Stream Chat from Stream Chat. We are going to define a client using streamchat.getInstance. Here we're going to provide the key that we have to get from the environment variable, so process.env. The name will be stream API key, and the second one will be API secret. So first one here is API key, and the second one here, let's look at the docs. For Node.js, yeah, API key, and the second one is API secret. It says that API key in some cases can be an empty variable, but maybe we can initialize, like default it to empty string if it's not there, and it will simply give us an error. So now having this client initialized with API key and the API secret, because we are in the backend environment, this is safe. we can generate tokens for users. However, where are we gonna do that? We're gonna do that when the user logs in. In your case, you can have a separate endpoint just to receive that token. That's totally fine. The only thing that you need in that context is the user with his ID. Because as you can see, when we create token, we need to put the ID inside the token. So here where we are returning the user, let's return one extra field called stream token. We're gonna create it using client dot create token, and let's pass the user ID as user.id. And because user ID in our case is a number, I'm gonna just simply do toString. If your user ID is a string, you can keep it like that. Now, if I'm going to send the same request to our funder client, to the login with username, if I'm gonna send it again, I need to restart actually the server. So let's go to the server, do stop, run it again. And if I'm gonna send it again, we see that besides the data about the user, it also gives us the stream token. That's exactly what we need to connect with our stream client on the client side. Okay, that means that we can go in our application, and inside our authentication provider here where we set the new user, we can console log new user to see if we receive it in our React Native application. So if I do here Vadim, sign in, we see that the user has a stream token. Nice. Now, because this auth context provider will also export this user here, we can import it in our chat layout. So in chat layout, where we connect with our stream chat client, and before that we were using dummy data. What we can do here is we can actually get the user from use authentication hook, and using this user, let's replace here, for example, ID is going to be user.id, and I think this one is a string, so we should also do toString. For the name is going to be user.name. For the image, I'm gonna leave it like this because we don't have a logic of having images in our backend, but in your case, you most probably have images in your backend, so add the URL of the image of a user. And here, instead of client dev token, we can do user.stream, how is it called? Stream token, right? Stream token. And we need to adjust the inside our authentication text, inside the context, where is the type for our user, and we need to add the stream token as a string here. So back in the layout, everything is still working. And yeah, let's try to connect. Vadim, sign in. We are going here. We can go to the public. And now these messages are not mine because I am a different user. Hey, I am Vadim. I can send. It sends from my account. I can restart and sign in as a different one. For example, Alex. I can go here. I can join the public. And I can say, I am Alex. Yes, it would be nice to have different images for all users. Maybe we can do some randomization here to have some fun. But yes, as you can see, like the users from our database here, let's say Alex with ID 7 and Vadim with ID 3, they're connected to our Stream Chat user. So if we go to the Explorer, I can go to the users. I see a user with ID 3, same ID as here, 3, Vadim, name Vadim, and one with ID 7, Alex. And that is how we connect a Stream Chat user with our users from our own system, from our own backend. Oh, that was powerful. That was a lot. I hope you are following along so far. We still have a couple of more things, like private messaging. We're gonna do that just in a moment. Let me just go ahead and do git add git commit -m of backend integration. Perfect. Awesome. So now that there are more users in our application, what we can do is you'll definitely have a way in your application to go to some user's profile or to see a list of users, and that will power the functionalities of creating a new chat room with that user. You'd want to start communicating with him. Hi, do you speak Russian? Yes, I do a bit. I understand better when I can talk, but I can talk as well. So what I wanted to do. Yeah, I wanted to implement a screen that will display all the users from our database. Here we're not talking about Stream Chat, it's about our database. So let's go ahead and create a new screen inside our application. I'm still gonna do it inside the chat, new file. Let's call it actually new message, or new message, or start chat, or new message. New channel. Let's do new channel.tsx. New channel, React Native functional export. Let's call it with capital N, new channel. And here I'm gonna sign in with Vadim. And when do we want to navigate there? What's going on? You can't use a channel after client disconnect. Okay, that was simply have to restart. Sign in. Perfect. Now when we are on this page that renders the channel, all the channel list, we want to add a small icon on the right for creating new channels. How do we do that? We do that using header options. So let's go in the layout of our chat. And in this layout, we already have the options that changes the title. Let's go ahead in the same way. First of all, let's find an icon, expo icons. And the icon will be new message. This one. So let's import it from an typo at the top of a file. Let's copy the rendering, and where we will render it inside the options in the header right. So header right, it's a function that will render this and typo. The color will be royal blue and the size will be 18. Now let's try to log in and we see it there. Now when we press, nothing happens. And to navigate to the newly created screen, new channel, let's wrap our icon with a link. And the link will have an href of /chat/ /chat/new channel. And let's make sure to import link from Expo router. Now sign in. And if I press this one, we go to the new channel screen. Here we have it. What do we want to do here is we want to fetch all the users. Where are we going to fetch the users? Let's implement the fetching logic inside our source services user service. Here we have login. Let's also export a new function, get users equal async. It doesn't need any parameters, but it's going to return a promise of user array. So let's go ahead and implement it. So what we have to do is let's do const response equal fetch. Here we're gonna fetch the API URL /users. And that's it. We don't need to send anything else because this is a GET request, and we will return, let's return await response.json. Or I can, instead of awaiting, I can return that promise right away. Response. Oh. I have to wait here and here, yes, JSON. So with this get user function, let's go in the new channel, and we're gonna need a couple of things. We're gonna need a state variable where we will keep all the users, set users equal use state. Initially, empty array. We can even specify the type here as user. Now, inside the use effect, let's simply call get users that is imported from our user service, get users, and the result we will set in state right away this way. Let's double check that we actually have users there by console logging the users. And if we navigate to that screen, we will see an array of users. Nice. Now let's go ahead and render them here inside a flat list. So flat list that is imported from React Native, not from gesture handler, from React Native. And this flat list will render as the data our users. And for render item, let's go ahead and define a new component. For example, user list item, where we will want to send a property user with the data about that user. We need to create this component, so let's go ahead in the source and create a new folder, components, and create a new file, user list item.tsx. Let's do React Native functional export. And here we're gonna receive a user. Let's define the type as user. And what we can do is let's simply display user.name for now. So now if I log in as Vadim, and if I go to creating a new message, does not exist because in the new channel we still have to import it. Now again, sign in. Let's see. Yes, user 1, user 2, Vadim and Alex. Perfect, that's good. Let's go in the user list item and add some basic styling. For example, for this view, let's do background color white. Let's do margin 5. Let's do some internal spacing with padding 5, maybe 10. Border radius 10, or is too much? Five. Yeah, I think that's already good enough for a list of users. Maybe margin vertical to be a bit less, like 2 or even 3. Yeah, it's okay. So now we have a list of users. What we want to do is whenever we press on one of these users, we want to start a private chat channel with him. So that's going to be our next step. But first, let me do git add query and render users. Yes, and now, as I said, whenever we press on one of these users, we want to start a private chat room with them. To do that, we're going to need to transform this to a pressable, because we need to be able to send the onPress event. Start channel with that user. Let's define the start channel here. And what should happen in the start channel? In the start channel, we need to basically create a new channel, and we already saw how to create those channel here. Channel, we specify the channel, and we create it. Okay. So let's do create channel equal is going to be an async function. Oh, it doesn't have to be an async function. This is not a use effect. So let's do const channel equal await. Not even here await in a moment. To create a channel, we need the client. So let's grab the client using use chat context. And let's grab the client dot channel. Here, the channel type. The channel type here, we want one-on-one messaging. So the best one would be messaging. Then the channel ID. There are actually two ways of creating channels. One way is by giving it an ID. And in that situation, you can create the channel now. And later you can invite users to that channel. Or the second approach to create a channel is by specifying a list of users who should be part of that channel. And in that case, later on, you cannot invite more people. It's going to be the channel between a couple of users. And this will also allow us to if we already have a channel with a user, by doing this, it will return the existing channel instead of creating a new one. So instead of channel ID here, how do we specify the user IDs? I think it's users or how? Members, which should be an array of members. So who are the members? Well, one of them is the user. So let's do user.id.to should be ourself, the user that is currently authenticated. To get it, we're gonna use the use authentication hook, and we're gonna take the user but because it's already here, let's call this user as me. Not as me, but double dots me. Now, let's put ourselves as the second member of the chat room that we are creating. Now, this is only creating it here locally. We have to call await channel.create, or a better approach would be await channel.watch, because behind the scenes, watch will call the create method and will start watching it. Basically, we'll start listening to updates. We need to make this function async. And lastly, yeah, like maybe in a moment, but let's just double check if everything is working. So I'm gonna go Vadim. Let's go here. Let's press on Alex. Nothing happens, but I really hope that, yeah, if I go back, we already see the chat room with Alex there. So I can go here and say, hey, Alex. Perfect. And now if I'm going to press again on the Alex, it's not going to create a new one because we already have it. An extra thing that we can do, of course, is whenever we press on a new message with someone to actually redirect after creating the channel. So let's go ahead and grab the router using use router. And after we create the channel, let's do a router dot push, and it's going to be chat dot channel, and here we have the channel dot ID. So if I log in with Vadim, sign in, if I create a new message with Alex, we are redirected here. If I go back and create one with user2, maybe user2 is actually not connected to the stream because it was created before, yes. But if I'm going to log in with, let's say, Gary, sign in, I'm only going to see the public chat room here. Come on, Gary. Okay. The error that we receive at the moment is error 70 query channel failed with error. One channel matched your query but cannot be returned because you don't have access to them. Did you forget to include members in? What that means is that in our channel list, in the chat index, in channel list, if we don't specify any filters, it will try to query and return all the channels. But the thing is that not all the channels we have access to. In this case, we signed in with the account Gary, and the channel that it was trying to fetch but didn't have access to, was the one between Vadim and Alex that we created before. So what we can do is we can provide here to the channel list some filters. And the filters is going to be very similar to how we queried the channel. Where is it? In the channel ID here, the filters will be very similar to this. But what we are interested in, like, give us all the channels where I am a member of. So for that reason, I'm gonna do const. We need the user from use authentication, like this. And using that user ID, we can say the filter should be members. And instead of equal sign, members is an array. So we can say if members contains our user.id.toString. And we need to call it. So now if I'm gonna sign in with Gary, it says that it doesn't have any chat rooms. And then we can go ahead and start talking with Vadim, for example. Hey, Vadim. And it's there. And now, yes, it has a room. But as you can see, ABC, we lost access to the public live stream channel because the filters, because we are not part of it of that channel. The channel is a public channel, so I think we still want to see it. So maybe we can provide some OR operator. How does OR operators work? Gracias. So let's put a OR operator here. I'm gonna need to look in the documentation. Channels, query channels. Type messaging and member scene. I think, yeah, that's what I need. Type messaging and member scene, or type and how do I do or? One second, let's see if this is pagination. Or matches at least one of these values specified in an array. Okay, it should be an array of objects. So we should say or is an array. Just to make ours make it easier, let's do const is private equal to this one. Members in, and const is public. Maybe we can say type, which one? Live stream did we choose there? So the or operator will have is private and is public. Either one of these. So let's do new user, sign in. And I hope to see the public, yes, because this is public. And also if I start chat messaging with someone, I will also want to see it here in our list. Yes, or is working. Perfect. Look, I think that we have everything ready to showcase and see if you can join and send some messages. So what you can do right now is go ahead and scan this QR code. But I think I have to, no, you're not gonna be able to do it yet. One second. Let me first do a git add, git commit. Private messages. Yes, perfect. And I will want to start the Expo Go with tunnel. Could not connect, connection refused. Why? Tunneling. To enable tunneling, first install this one globally. And only then start it with this tunnel. The file argument must be of type string, received null. What? This will server application. Why it's not working with ngrok? I really like to let you join this as well. No, but it seems that I cannot expo. Yeah, for some reason I cannot start it with a tunnel. So yeah, what I can do, I just can simulate some conversations here with myself. Not very fun, but what can we do? So on this, network request failed. What's happening? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not on a Wi-Fi, that's why network requests are failing. From my physical device as well, I cannot connect for some reason. But here, local with a simulator, everything is perfectly fine. Network error. Network error. Do I have internet? Hope so. Anyway, yeah, we can see also the bubbles with notifications for new messages when we receive. We can go there, can reply, and so on. So I will leave you here and let you experiment and play around with this application further. For some reason, I cannot open the tunneling to allow everyone to join. I really wanted to see that. Maybe we can host it later and I can send the URL. So if we do that, make sure to subscribe to our Twitter account. Yeah, but in the end, we have implemented everything that we wanted to do, with a rendering of list of users, with private messaging, with group messaging. And again, guys, if you have any questions, please let me know. Everything that we have done today covers just the beginning of what's possible with Stream Chat SDK, because there are a lot of things where you can dive deeper into in terms of customization to provide exactly the experience that you want to provide for your users, and also about extra features that we didn't have time to cover. There is a lot of additional features of managing chat rooms, managing channels, seeing all the users that are in a channel, kicking users, making someone an admin, like everything that you need to implement these functionalities. What else you can do there? Like it's just so many things. I highly recommend you check out the documentation to see what's possible. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'm going to try to help you implement the features that you need in your application when it comes to building messaging applications. If you enjoyed this one, guys, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. That's helping us a lot to reach more developers and help more people out there build impactful mobile applications. Yes, also turn on the notification bell because we are going live every single Friday with different builds. My voice is already cracking. That means that it is time to end this live stream. And on a good note, I'll say bye-bye. Have a nice rest of the week. Have a nice weekend if you're watching it live. And I'll see you next week with new builds. Bye-bye, guys. And yeah, thank you very much to Stream for sponsoring this video and for making it possible. Really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure working with Stream, and I hope